We're celebrating with Laurence Juber, his new album. Please hold up that album cover. There we go. Look at that, A Day in My Life.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that cover photo taken?
That picture was actually taken in Charterhouse Square, which is in London. It's not, although the album was recorded in Abbey Road Studio 2, which was why that was really the whole intention. Was what happened was I got invited to Billy J. Kramer's 80th birthday party, which was happening in Studio 2. And I'd also been asked to co-produce a record with him. So we had the party. The next 2 days we spent recording in the studio. The day before the party, I contacted Abbey Road and said, can I book the day? And I was lucky enough to get a day in there. So my wife Hope, who produces my records, said, let's record some of our favorite Beatle arrangements and in Studio 2. It was kind of like a best of LJ Plays the Beatles in a way. And my concept was to do 12 songs because I wanted to put it on LP. And, 12 songs is about the limit time-wise. And it was, I couldn't decide whether to call it A Day in the Life or In My Life. And A Day in My Life was the most accurate way of describing it anyway. So.
And please read us the track listing. What songs have you covered on here?
Blackbird, Day Tripper, Strawberry Fields Forever, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I Am the Walrus, Rain, And Your Bird Can Sing, Let It Be, A Day in the Life, Across the Universe, Honey Pie, and In My Life.
Wow.
There's the back cover.
Yes. And when you recorded at Abbey Road, was it just you and overdubs, or did you have other musicians?
No overdubs, just me.
Okay.
Just one guitar, because
so pretty much live performances and then go in and overdub where it needed?
No. Strictly, most of my records have been made where it's just me with one guitar.
Okay.
Because what I do is completely self-contained. I'm playing the bass lines, I'm playing the melody and the rhythm all at the same time.
Fine.
So
you want to be able to recreate it when you perform it live.
Yeah, and that's how I perform live. It's the nature of what I do in that realm. I do other things too, but my goal as a fingerstyle guitar player was always to be completely self-sufficient. So, and I don't use loopers, I don't use any tricks. It's just all in the fingers and 6 strings. And people seem to appreciate it because it's, there's a certain impressive quality to it. It's nothing that I'm really aware of because I'm busy doing it, but people seem to find it impressive. And the fact that I can entertain people not only visually with what I'm doing, but also musically and emotionally. And I think part of the motivation in doing this record was to revisit tunes that I may have recorded, let's say 20 years ago, but with a fresh perspective, because my playing has changed, my life has gone on, and that there's more. I can imbue the performances with a more, with a more mature perspective.
That's amazing, and I know you're out performing it live. Is there any other angles that you're working to get the word out or to promote it?
Oh yeah, there's stuff going on. I just actually am pushing Blackbird in the UK as a single.
Okay.
But basically,
and why did you choose that one?
Well, it's the first track on the album, partially. Okay. Also, it's kind of, my approach to it is a little different. The thing about it is, Paul's accompaniment to Blackbird was really based on something that he got from a Johann Sebastian Bach piece, Bourrée in E minor, that he and George had learned. I discovered most likely from a Chet Atkins record. And Paul talks about it when he plays Blackbird in concert, that he plays a little bit of this Bach Bourrée. And you can see where all those kind of the moving line where he's playing like the bass note and one other note at the same time. You can see where that comes from. What I do is first of all, you can't do that accompaniment, but also incorporate the melody too, not effectively. So I do it in a different tuning. I use DAD-GAD tuning, D-A-D-G-A-D, where the top two strings and the bottom string of the guitar are tuned down a whole step. I use that tuning, and I do it in the key of A as opposed to the key of G, and that way I can lead with the melody and build the accompaniment around it, and also give myself some space for something a little bit more improvisational too. So it's a different take on the tune, and people seem to like that. So that's normally I haven't done singles in a long time, but in the streaming world, singles are actually kind of get more traction than whole albums. And in fact, last year, between September and December, I released a monthly single of original fingerstyle pieces, just a series of 4 tunes. And I'm going to be doing more singles later on this year too, because while I was at Abbey Road, I also recorded a few other things. And then I've got some original tunes that I'm going to be recording here too. So, I think keeping up a steady stream of releases is just in the nature of the new kind of musical ecosystem when it comes to record releases.
Sure.
Plus, I've also been producing. I mean, I've co-produced this Billy J. Kramer record. In fact, the first single, "Are You With Me," is out with that. I co-produced a record with an old friend of mine, T. Bear, who's a singer-songwriter, kind of in the Leon Russell, Dr. John kind of vibe. And there's a single from that record that is right now in the top 20 on the Dutch blues charts. Wow. And then a track that I played on with Carla Olson and Alan Clark. Carla Olson from the Textones, Alan Clark from the Hollies. That's #1 on the Heritage charts in the UK this week too. So it's like all of a sudden I'm finding myself much more involved in the record business than I have been in some time. And I think part of that is just the post-COVID thing, that during lockdown, I was doing Facebook Live 3 times a week from here, from this studio. And so that kind of was what kept me in shape as a player. And then once things started opening up, I also found myself getting involved in a lot more record projects than I had been because I wasn't traveling as much. So that goes back to my roots as a studio musician, but also the fact that I learned how to make records from working with McCartney, because I got to see the process firsthand. And I learned about engineering, I learned about arranging, I learned about, just recording, all of that.
And when you were recording at Abbey Road, and of course you were familiar with the studio, but did you feel in essence kind of the spirit of musical past? Did you kind of get into the history and the perspective of where you were doing this?
Totally. That's a magical room beyond the fact that the Beatles recorded there. That room has some magic to it. I mean, that's Abbey Road opened in 1933. I mean, that studio had been around for some years before the Beatles ever stepped in there. But to record Beatles songs in that space where they recorded them originally, and it hasn't really changed much. The control room has changed, but the studio itself doesn't look remarkably different from what it was when I worked there back in the mid-70s and then subsequently with Wings. And you can see the same aspects of it if you look at the pictures of the Beatles working there. But it really has a feeling to it. There's a vibe to it that is quite magical. And I tried to capture that in the performances when I was recording.
Well, we want to encourage everyone to go get that album, support Laurence Juber on his live performances, and Please hold that cover up one more time. This
Right
is what you're
now,
looking for.
it's on all the streaming services.
Okay.
It's also available on vinyl.
You can order the vinyl on Amazon.
You can get it from Amazon. If you want it signed, you can do it through my website.
Okay.
When I
LaurenceJuber.com.
yeah, and the CDs, I wasn't intending to do CDs, but I kind of broke down and said, well, you know, we'll do a limited run of CDs too. So
Yeah.
I'll have those in a couple of weeks as well.
Well, there is certainly a demand for it. Physical goods is still there. The music is magical. Our special guest has been the one and only Laurence Juber, multi-talented, award-winning writer and guitarist. So, Laurence, we really appreciate this. It's always an honor to speak to you. Look forward to seeing these songs performed live. Blessings to you, your lovely wife and family, and your dogs. Hopefully they will get.
While I think of it, I have
Yes.
to mention my daughter Ilse,
Yes.
who has over the last decade written a number of big hit songs, including Panic at the Disco's High Hopes, Treat People with Kindness, Harry Styles, which I also played on.
Oh, wow.
And all kinds of stuff. I mean, her written by playlist on Spotify runs to over 130 songs. But she also has an album out on Elektra. It's called From the Valley. She's been getting some pretty solid radio airplay on it. In England, she's on Parlophone, which was the Beatles label, which is very cool. And she's going to be doing it. She's going to be opening in Europe for Train, for the band Train.
Yes.
And playing the Albert Hall. So.
Well, chip off the old block. It's got to make you feel proud.
Oh, hashtag
Planting some seeds everywhere you go.
Yeah. And then our oldest daughter, Nico, has had an off-Broadway musical running last year that she transitioned from working in the corporate world to musical theater. So she's having some success with that too. So.
Well, and I know your wife certainly with her father Sherwood, who created and produced the Brady Bunch, which the home is right there in Studio City, and Gilligan's Island. So a lot to celebrate. And
and your Gilligan's Island
free here.
Gilligan's Island, Hope and I wrote the musical, which gets produced all over the place. Community theaters love to do it. And then we have also a very Brady musical, which we're waiting to hear about a production, hopefully before too long. And then I'm also the arranger for a musical called Part of the Plan, which is all Dan Fogelberg songs, which is going to get a production in England next year. We did it in Nashville a few years ago, and it's developing quite nicely.
Well, fantastic. Always a supreme pleasure. Laurence, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to staying in touch and talking again soon. Thank you.
All right, cheers.